Welcome to Vibe Code Camp. I'm Paul Wakeham. We're going to be building a full stack mobile app with AI together, step by step in public. Over the last year and a half, I have gone deep into all things AI, specifically building apps with AI. And I've even shipped my own podcast app and built countless other side projects. So I'm creating this course so that you can look over my shoulder to learn how to use AI to build apps and ultimately to build one of your own. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Vibe Code Camp. In this first video, I'm going to go over the basic foundation of what we're going to build and how we're going to build it throughout this series of videos. So let's jump right into it. First things first, I want to be totally honest. I am not a professionally trained developer, and we're going to be building a mobile app. I have personally never built a complete mobile app. So I'm excited to dive into this. This will very much be a build in public for you and I to learn together. I have, however, shipped a fully functional, pretty complex web-based app that allows you to chat with podcasts, which maybe we'll get into in another video. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to start off by giving you the foundation of everything we're going to build and how we're going to build it, what languages we're going to use, what type of code we're going to use, and what AI tools we're going to use. Because even though I'm not a professional developer, over the past year and a half, I have done everything in my power to learn everything I possibly can about using leading AI tools to develop applications. And I'm extremely confident in my ability and these tools' ability to create this app for us. So let's get started. I'll show you the app mockup that I've created. This mockup was created using a software called V0. V0, in my opinion, is the single best AI app. And I say that because it has been the best at taking the images in my head of what I want something to look like and making it appear in code, but also visually in front of my eyes. Now, one caveat for this project, specifically with respect to V0, V0 really only writes React code. We, in this project, because we're going to be developing a mobile app, we're going to be using React Native code. React is meant for web-based apps or web apps. But for the sake of showing you a visualization of what we're going to build, I used V0 to create a React-based mockup of the app we're going to be building. So what is the app? The app right now is just called AI Scheduler, and it's actually something that I use day to day, but I use it inside of a ChatGPT project. I don't have this app yet, and man, do I wish I had it. But what it will allow the user to do is open the app and essentially stream of consciousness, think through all of the things they have to do for the day. For example, you'll be able to do something like send a voice message to the AI that says, hey, I need help organizing my day tomorrow. I have to pick up my kids from school at 3:15 p.m., go to the grocery store sometime in the morning, have lunch with Sarah from marketing around noon, schedule a team meeting for 2 p.m., hit the gym before 8 a.m. or after 6 p.m., and I also need to call the dentist to reschedule my appointment. Oh, and I have a doctor's appointment at 10 a.m. that I already have scheduled. And then the AI behind the scenes that we build will be able to take that unstructured data and structure it into appointments that you can add onto your calendar. But the crazy thing that we're going to build is the AI will be able to talk to your Google Calendar, see what's already on the calendar, and not move those things around, but figure out how to put all of the things that you just said onto your Google Calendar, and you'll be able to approve or deny those additions. You can think of it kind of like a really advanced AI to-do list app, but specifically with integrations into your Google Calendar. And I think we're even going to be able to integrate it with Google Maps so that you can say, my kid's school is around this location, the name of the school is ABC Elementary, and it will know, okay, you're going to go grocery shopping at Kroger at 8:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m., but you need to go to do your next thing at the school, and it'll be able to figure out what the distance travel time is using the Google Maps integration. So cool. AI just makes me so excited. So this is what we're going to build. You can see the calendar view here looks just like Google Maps, and all of this will be translated directly into your Google Maps so that you can visualize it on your phone outside of the app if you'd like to. So that's what we're going to build. Next, I'll go over the different technologies that we're going to use. But first, let me lay the foundation for one of the most important things that I've learned since starting developing some web apps and using AI in general to develop apps. So there are three, arguably four, but I like to think of it as three primary components to developing an app or building something that is truly ready for production. You have your front end, you have your back end, and you have your database. You can think of the front end of your application as the buttons, the colors, and the components that you interact with. It's like the surface that you sit there and hold in your phone and click. And the front end interacts with the back end. The back end you can think of like the brain of your application. So you click this button here and it sends a signal to the back end to do something. Let's say this is a send button to send a message to the AI. All of the data that is your text in that message is sent to the back end, and then the back end figures out, hey, what do I need to do with this? And we will write the code with the help of AI that says, hey, this is what we do with the text that is sent from the front end. And then the back end, being the brain of the application that it is, it also interacts with the database. The database you can think of kind of like a storage place, a place where all of the data is stored. And why do we need a database? So in that example, if you send a message from the front end to the back end, you're going to want to be able to see that message again the next time you open up the application. And you want to load your previous messages. The back end sends a message to the database, and the database says, sure, here's the previous message information, the previous message data, and then the back end sends that data to the front end, and you get to see your previous messages that you've sent. So these are the three main components. I say there's arguably four primary components because there is the thing that holds all of this code that represents the front end, the back end, and the database, and that is the server. So the server you can just think of as a computer. So you can build all of this locally, which means just on your computer, and your computer runs all of the code that talks with the front end and the back end and the database. But if you want this to be available to other people to use, you need to set up a server. And you can set up a server on services like AWS, but for the purposes of this project, we'll set it up using a service called Render. And all they are doing, don't let anybody scare you with crazy techno lingo. All a server is a computer that you interact with, that everybody can interact with if they have the correct credentials, if they have the correct keys to access that server, so that they can run the code and they can perform the processes that they want to perform. And it's just not on your computer in front of you. It's out in the cloud. So a server is definitely an important part of this entire stack. But when I think about how do I interact with an app, I really think about the front end, back end, and the database. So I hope that example makes sense. Now, underlying all of this front end, back end, and database, there are code languages that we will write in, or we will tell the AI to write in to make the front end and make the logic and the brain of the back end and make the tables in the database. You can think of a database like a gigantic Excel table. So the front end, we're going to be using a type of code, a language called TypeScript. We're going to be using React Native to create the components like the buttons and the colors and the various items that you interact with on the screen. And we're going to be using a service called Expo to help create the app. So TypeScript, React Native, and Expo for the front end. And then on the back end, we're going to be using Python as the general language. I like to use Python because it's a little bit more readable for me to read just with my eyes and understand what's happening. It's almost like reading English in some cases. So we're going to use Python, and then we're going to use Django, which is a Python framework that makes interacting with and creating the database really easy. And then the database, we're going to be using a technology called PostgreSQL. Specifically, we're going to be using a database provided by a company called Supabase. Maybe you've heard of them. I like using all these technologies because they have been very easy to interact with. And most importantly, the AI inside of Claude Code and the AI inside of Cursor and the AIs in general, they know how to read and write and understand all of these different languages and how they all interact really well. I'm not really well versed enough on all of the different coding languages that are out there, but I know that the AI is really well versed and really knows how to read and write and interact with all of those languages and everything that we're going to be using to create this project. So that's what we're going to be using. Okay, so I just went ahead real quick and added all of those different languages and frameworks and softwares that we're going to be using to create this application. So next, I want to talk about the different tools that we're going to use, which we briefly covered, which will be Cursor and Claude Code. Cursor and Claude Code will be the way that we write new code, make sure the AI knows what our existing code is, and really build all of these different pieces. Now, the main way that we're going to be using Cursor and Claude Code will be to create the front end and write the logic that is the back end that then interacts with the database. Thankfully, Supabase does a lot of the work to create the database so that we can have the back end interact with it. So Cursor and Claude Code will be the AI agents that allow us to build the different components of the application. Okay, next I want to briefly go over the different libraries and what that means that we're going to use to build the AI features of the backend. So when the user sends a message to the backend and the backend says, hey, I need the AI to understand what was previously said and what the user's newest message is, and then I need it to take all of that into account, and then I need it to understand how to respond to the user, and then I need to send that AI's message back to the front end. The way that will be done will be with a company that I'm sure everyone has heard called OpenAI. So OpenAI is not only the creator of ChatGPT, the front-end application that we're all used to interacting with, but they're also the creators of the OpenAI API. And the API is essentially a bunch of code that OpenAI gives us that allows us to say, hey, here's a message, now generate a response to it given the newest message and all of the previous messages. So we're going to be using the OpenAI API. Specifically, we're going to be using the OpenAI Agents SDK. And the Agents SDK is just a way to create various agents, individual AIs that all have their own roles, and they all work together to come up with an answer to our question. And then inside of the backend, we're also going to use a library called Composio. So Composio is a platform that gives us a bunch of tools. So a tool might be the Google Maps or the Google Calendar API. But instead of having to go in and write a bunch of code that says, hey, I want to interact with Google Maps, and then writing all of that into the back end and orchestrating the entire process of interacting with that software, Composio does all of that for us. So we'll use Composio for Google Maps, and we'll use Composio for Google Calendar. Pardon my terrible handwriting. And what those will do is they'll actually create tools that we hand to the AIs. So we'll first define the AIs using OpenAI, their API, and the Agents SDK. And then we will hand the AIs tools that allow them to say, oh, The user is sending me a message. I need to go and retrieve their current appointments on their calendar. I know I need to use the Google Calendar Composio tool to do that. And then we'll be able to say, okay, if you need to figure out how far one appointment is from the next so that there's a proper amount of travel time and that appointment 2 starts at the correct time after appointment 1, we will hand the AIs the ability to interact with Google Maps via the tool that Composio defines. It's really fascinating. Composio is one of the most impressive softwares that I've used, and I can't wait to use it for this project because it will make our interaction with the Google softwares much easier. So I hope all that makes sense. This is the general framework that we're going to be using for Vibe Code Camp to create this app. So I think that that about sums it up for this video. In the next video, I'm going to go over how to set up Cursor, how to set up Claude Code, and how to ask those AIs how to set up this entire project given all of this information. And I think one of the interesting things that I'll be able to do is I'll be able to take the transcript from this video and just give it to those AIs and say, hey, go set up this project based on this video that I made and the transcript that describes it. And it will start setting up the TypeScript project and the React Native project using Expo and setting up the backend and installing Django and all of that interesting stuff. So that'll be the next video. I hope that all of this makes sense. If you have any questions, send me a message or leave a comment. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm really, really looking forward to this.